He didn't expect his past to come running back to him in the most heartbreaking way possible, not like this, not on a quiet, fading afternoon when the world felt too ordinary to hold miracles or tragedies. But when he turned onto the old dusty road leading out of town, he saw her, a helpless woman crouched beneath the dying shade of the old neem tree, her hair tangled, her clothes torn, her hands wrapped around herself as if she were trying to hold her soul together before it slipped out of her body. At first, he slowed down just out of instinct, the kind one has when seeing someone in trouble. But the moment she lifted her face, everything inside him shattered, because it was her, the love he had lost, painfully, brutally, years ago, the only woman who had ever taught him what it meant to feel something so deeply it hurt. He felt his heart lurch into his throat, like the world had played a cruel trick on him. He blinked once, twice, trying to convince himself it wasn't his mind filling the empty spaces with memories. But when her tired, broken eyes met his, there was no doubt left. He stepped out of the car slowly, afraid that the slightest movement would make her disappear again like every dream he had tried to forget. She didn't look like the woman he once knew. Life had carved storms into her, carved loneliness into her bones. There was dried blood on her arm, bruises peeking from beneath her sleeve, and a hollow fear in her eyes that made his heart twist. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked midway. All she managed to whisper was his name, a breath, a ghost, a plea that one word was enough to pull him across the road in a heartbeat. He knelt beside her, not touching her yet, because she looked like someone who might break with a single careless gesture. She blinked back tears, her lips trembling as if she was fighting the urge to collapse completely. And for the first time in years, he felt something inside him ignite, an ache he thought he had buried long ago. He asked softly, "What happened?" But she only shook her head, avoiding his eyes, the weight of her pain too heavy to hold. He didn't push her, instead, he gently offered his hand. She hesitated for a moment, fear, embarrassment, maybe even shame flickering across her face. But then she placed her trembling palm into his, and that was the moment everything changed. Her fingers were cold, too cold, and he realized she hadn't just been hurt physically. Life had drained her, carved hope out of her, leaving behind a fragile shell of the woman he once loved with impossible intensity. He helped her stand, and she almost collapsed, her knees buckling from exhaustion or shock. He caught her instantly, supporting her carefully, guiding her to his car. She leaned on him like she no longer had the strength to pretend she was fine. And a part of him, a part he had silenced for years, whispered that she had always been his weakness and maybe his purpose. When he wrapped his jacket around her shivering body, she looked up at him with eyes filled with unspoken stories, painful ones, lonely ones, ones he wished he could erase. And in that gaze, he saw something else too: trust. Broken, hesitant trust. But trust nonetheless. He drove slowly, constantly glancing at her through the rearview mirror. Her eyes were half closed, exhaustion pulling her down, but every time she shifted, he felt his chest tighten. She was hurt deeply. And whatever she had endured it alone. When they reached his small cabin at the edge of town, she struggled to step out, so he helped her inside. She sat on the couch, clutching the jacket closer as if she was afraid warmth would slip away again. He handed her a cup of tea, and she held it like a lifeline. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, two people haunted by the same past, now tangled in a present neither expected. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was thin, shaking, breaking at the edges. She told him she had returned to town not because she wanted to, but because she had nowhere else left to go. Life had become a battlefield she could no longer survive. She had given her heart to someone who didn't know how to hold it. She had loved someone who mistook her silence for weakness, her kindness for permission. She had walked away only when there was nothing left inside her except fear. She said she didn't want to come back here, but her feet led her to the one place she once felt safe. To him, he listened, every word hitting him like a quiet storm. He remembered how they once loved, softly, wildly, recklessly, until pride and timing tore them apart. He remembered the night she walked away, tears running down her face, because he was too stubborn to stay, too broken to believe he deserved her. They were young, confused, scared of how real it all felt. He had spent years trying to forget her, failing every time, and now life had brought her back to him, broken, lost, desperate for grounding. He didn't tell her he still cared. He didn't tell her she had never truly left his heart. He only said, "You're safe now. I'm here." She broke down then, not violently, not loudly, but quietly, as if releasing pain she had carried too long. Tears ran down her cheeks, and he wiped them gently, afraid of hurting her more. She leaned into his hand, closing her eyes like she had found a place she had long been searching for. That night, he let her sleep in his bed while he took the small chair beside it. He didn't sleep, not really. He watched her fragile breathing, the way her fingers curled around the blanket, the way she whimpered softly in her sleep. Every sound felt like a plea for help. And he vowed silently that whatever had broken her would never break her again, not if he could stop it. Morning, she woke with tears drying on her cheeks. She sat up slowly, clutching the blanket as if afraid the moment might disappear. When their eyes met, she whispered, "I dreamt of us." She told him she had dreamt of the time when they were young and foolishly in love, running in the rain, laughing under trees, promising forever without understanding what forever meant. She dreamt of the night she left him and wondered how different life might have been if they had fought for each other. He sat beside her. She reached for his hand hesitantly, as if fearing he might pull away. But he didn't. Their fingers intertwined naturally, like they always had. She said she had spent years pretending she didn't think about him, but she did. Every time life broke her a little more, every time she realized she had given her heart to the wrong person. He listened, his heart beating painfully, because he had wondered the same things. What if they had stayed? What if they had loved without fear? What if they had fought instead of giving up? She began crying again, not because of sorrow this time, but because speaking her pain out loud felt like peeling away armor she didn't need anymore. He held her, letting her cry into his chest, whispering that she didn't have to pretend anymore. Not with him. Days passed slowly. She began healing, not because he fixed her, but because she finally felt safe enough to breathe. They spent hours talking, cooking together, walking through the quiet fields, rediscovering each other. Some moments were hard, heavy with memories that still hurt. But some were light, soft, filled with laughter that made them feel young again. And then one evening, as the sky burned with the colors of sunset, he took her back to the neem tree, the place where everything had begun. The carved letters they once etched were still there, worn by time but not erased. She touched them gently, her fingers trembling. She whispered, "Life broke me, but something brought me back to you." He stepped behind her, close enough to feel her heartbeat. He said softly, "Maybe we weren't ready before. Maybe now we are." She turned, tears in her eyes, not the painful kind, but the kind that come when someone finally finds something they lost long ago. He asked her quietly if she wanted to start again, not from where they left off, but from who they had become after all their storms. She hesitated only a second before nodding, her voice a whisper of hope. "Yes. I want to try again." He pulled her into his arms, not desperately, but gently, like holding something precious and fragile. She rested her head against his chest, hearing the steady rhythm of a heart that had waited for her even when he didn't want to admit it. No promises were needed. No dramatic declarations, just two weary souls choosing each other again, because sometimes life takes everything from you just to give you one last chance at the one thing you needed all along. Sometimes the love you lose painfully is the love that returns to heal you. As the wind rustled through the leaves, they stood beneath the tree, knowing that this time, their story wasn't ending. It was finally beginning.